What's going on, everybody? It's Sasha, your licensed real estate market expert here in Charlotte, and we are back for the monthly Q&A, the first Thursday of the month. This one almost missed my grasp. I was looking at my phone yesterday, and I was like, what is Thursday the 2nd is tomorrow? And I got confused, so I almost missed this live, but I'm glad I caught it. I actually had another video planned for tomorrow, but we are here. We're at the office, been here for a couple hours now. But with that being said, any and all questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comments. And I am live. I see there's one person watching right now. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in there right now. But until then, I'm just gonna go over some other questions that I've gotten from other people recently and some of the questions that were on the last live that I didn't get the opportunity to answer for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Is due diligence refundable? So unfortunately, North Carolina is one of the very few states that has something like a due diligence. Not only do we have a due diligence, but we also have earnest money deposit, which is the one that's most common. I think every other state in the US has earnest money, but we have earnest money and due diligence. So a due diligence fee is non-refundable. Once a seller accepts your offer, whatever you decided to put in that due diligence amount, that check is written to the seller. And if you happen to back out for any reason at all, whether it be inspection, whether it be maybe you weren't able to get financing for the house, any reason at all, if you decide to back out, the due diligence is non-refundable. There's been 2 times in my real estate career where I've been able to get back the due diligence, but it is extremely hard, and I pulled out a miracle in doing so. Essentially what happened was I was able to prove that the sellers misrepresented something along the lines of the house. And I was able to prove that and essentially get them to return that due diligence money to the buyers. But for the most part, due diligence is non-refundable. As long as you go through with the home purchase, any earnest money, any due diligence that you put towards that all goes towards the home closing at the end. So it goes towards your down payment, it goes down towards your closing costs. It's essentially, a down payment, a good faith deposit that goes to the house. So the money's not lost as long as you go through with the home purchase. I'm planning to buy a single family home when the market is right, but this year we even looked into country areas like China Grove, Mount Holly, still crazy expensive. So I understand, things are expensive and things like that, but one thing that I recommend that you should not sacrifice at all when buying a home is going to be the location. Location is one, if not the biggest thing in regards to a home purchase. I cannot tell you the amount of people that I've spoken to in these last couple of years that, maybe were priced out of a certain area and they just went somewhere else that was, less expensive and ended up buying there. And now they're wanting to sell and get into an area that they actually like because they settled. So one thing to pay attention to, I know the market is tough, especially with the pricing, especially with the rates and things like that, but the location matters so much. You don't want to be in a position where you buy a house just because you can afford it and you went 45 minutes outside of where you want it to be just because the prices are better. It's better to get the location dialed in, even if that means buying a smaller home with a smaller lot size or something like that. It's a tough situation because obviously we all want to be in essentially these prime locations. We all want to be in the best locations, but sometimes our price range doesn't allow us to do so. For example, when I was buying my house, my townhouse, what I wanted to be in Uptown, I wanted to be in South End, I wanted to be in Dilworth, all those great areas, but my budget wasn't allowing me to do so. So what I could have done was get something a lot smaller in size, but at that point I didn't want to settle for size anyway. So I did just go 15 to 20 minutes outside of Uptown, but it was an area that I wasn't settling on. It was an area that was higher in price point. I got more square footage for the house, but it's an area that I wanted to be in, and the fact that I was able to get the price where I needed it to be, it 100% made sense to me. And now I live in an area where I wouldn't mind buying another home and staying there for even a long run. If you can help it, do not sacrifice location, because you might regret it in the next couple of years. And at that point, it's possible you might lose money if you bought a home and then you end up selling it a year or two down the line. Any and all questions are welcome. Suzanne Lee, do you notice any layoffs in the Charlotte area yet? Any thoughts on job market in Charlotte area or the Triangle? So to be honest with you, no, I really haven't noticed any layoffs in Charlotte. I know some of the banks, I want to say Wells Fargo are doing some layoffs. I believe Truist is also doing some layoffs, but not to the effect where I'm personally noticing it or personally working with people that have experienced some of these layoffs. And that's one of the two big things that is kind of keeping the real estate market essentially still relatively competitive, is the low inventory, and then the unemployment rate is still very low in the Charlotte area. So the Triangle area, that's the Raleigh-Durham area. That area I'm unfamiliar with, but I would assume they're very similar to us, and I know their real estate market hasn't really slowed down that much at all. So yeah, I mean, unemployment is just very low. I'm still seeing a lot of things happening. Actually, let me see here. It was just announced today. Merger of Cedar Fair and Six Flags yields new corporate headquarters for Charlotte, a $3.4 billion company. And this is the second company probably in the last month coming to the Charlotte area, which is just bringing more jobs and things like that. Obviously, this is going to take a little bit to materialize for the headquarters to get up and rolling and everything like that. But essentially, our unemployment rate is still relatively low. If that happens to change, then we could see some, shifting in the real estate market and things like that. But as of right now, the unemployment and the low inventory is one of the things that's keeping the market essentially propped up, keeping the prices high, even though we have these very high interest rates. Depending on your credit score, if you're not buying down points or anything like that, you're probably looking in the high 7s, low 8s right now. Yes, I see a couple delusional investors bought for lower than asking and then put for sale for a higher price right after that. Yeah, I mean, it's been common. These last couple of years for investors has been insane. You almost didn't have to do anything to the house. So I've seen a lot of investors these past couple years buy a house that's listed on the market, get a discount on it, maybe because they're paying cash or maybe because it needs a little bit of work. They buy it, they paint it, they change the flooring, a couple other little tiny things. Maybe they change the fixtures or a countertop or a sink, and then they'll go ahead and put it right back on the market, for $50, $75, $100,000 more than what they just got it for 6 months ago. So it's kind of crazy, but that has definitely slowed down now. As I mentioned, the rates are taking a big toll unless somebody's buying cash and then reselling it. If they're having to use a hard money lender or something like that, the investors they're not out, they're still out there looking for good deals, because it is a good time to find some deals, because a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the interest rates to drop. But once they do, competition could potentially come back and prices could potentially go back through the roof, if we still keep that low inventory. But yeah, you're always going to have those investors that, get a house for a little bit of a discount, 40, 50,000, and then try to resell it for, 100 grand more in 6 months or so after they've done some light cosmetic repairs. But you can't blame them. Somebody's gonna buy it after that, then, kind of what can you do? You know what I mean? Hi, Sasha, did you talk about the NAR situation yet? What have you heard about the NAR and its effects on Charlotte MLS? To be honest with you, RJ, I was a little bit nervous somebody was gonna ask me this, because I don't want to rant for 30 minutes about this subject, but I wish I would have been called into a courtroom or something like that to talk to these crazy people. They've ruled in a conspiracy against all these big real estate companies as far as, wanting to do like price fixings for commissions. I don't think we're gonna see any type of effect right now. I think this is gonna drag out for a couple years. I think they're gonna be doing a ton of appeals and things like that. but it could change the real estate market forever if they got rid of essentially buyer's agents. Because if a seller didn't want to pay for both sides and they got rid of the buyer's agents, if that was to happen like overnight, like once this verdict passed, that would be a black swan event, because you would have probably half, if not more, real estate agents quit, and that would be a nightmare for buyers. But the reason I don't see anything changing, I think they're going to do the appeals. I don't see anything changing as far as how things are done, because it would be, if you think there's a big lawsuit now, I can only imagine if buyers went to buy a house without a realtor and that were working directly with the seller's realtor, how many misrepresentation lawsuits would happen after the fact. Nobody would be held accountable. There's no code of ethics, and it would be an absolute disaster. But the timing of this lawsuit is kind of the craziest part to me. Sellers right now are netting, they're making the most money they've ever in the history of the world made when they sell their house, and they're complaining about real estate commissions. You know, and it's interesting because it's a double-edged sword. Every single seller of a home was once a buyer. You were once a first-time home buyer before you got that. How you get that, how you do that without a buyer's agent, you can, obviously. It's just very tricky, very hard to do, very hard to negotiate the contracts. And like I said, who's gonna hold certain people responsible? I think if something like that, if buyer's agents had left the industry, it would be very, very bad for consumers, because there's nobody there protecting them. Can you imagine? It's like selling a car on Craigslist. Hey, the car's 30 years old, it's great, it's fine, no oil leaks, the transmission's totally fine. You buy the car, you didn't get an inspection, the car breaks down. This could easily happen with the house, and especially when you're talking about sellers netting $50, $100, $200, $300,000. People would say anything to make that type of money, including lie to you about a house and conspire to do crazy things. I can go on and on about this, but I don't want to bore everybody. But yeah, it's an interesting situation. I don't think it's going to change anything in the near future. I think this is something that's going to drag out for a little while, and we might see some real changes happen in the next couple of years or so. Here we go, unique property inspections. Sasha, what do you think the marquee looking like in March or April? My son rents in South Park area, but I like to see if prices may drop. To be honest with you, right now, I don't see it. I mentioned earlier in the video that inventory is so low, unemployment rate is so low. The rates are still relatively high, and there's still people out there buying. There's still a lot of people out there buying real estate with the low inventory, with the high rates. So I can't imagine what's going to happen if the rates drop. I think they're going to keep the rates relatively high. Probably they really need to keep the rates high all of 2024 if they want to really combat this housing market. But I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, I think your son should maybe get pre-approved now and maybe test the waters. You know, start looking for houses that have been sitting on the market for 30 days, 60 days, and things like that. And it looks like, you know, you do property inspections, so you can maybe guide him as far as the condition of the property, how much it could cost to maybe fix up or something like that. So look for the houses maybe that are 30, 60, 90 days plus on the market, and see if you can get a good deal. See if you can get them $30, $40, $50,000 below the listed price. See if you can work something out. If the rates come down in the spring of 2024, I just think there's too many buyers right now sitting on the sidelines waiting for that to happen. And I think if it does happen too early, I think we're going to have a bunch of buyers flood the market, and we're going to be in a multiple offer situation again. And I think, you know, obviously the prices will be a lot higher if we get into that multiple offer situation. But obviously there's so much stuff going on right now, the geopolitical stuff happening. It's very hard to tell. Obviously I wish I had a crystal ball, but I don't. But right now, up until January, February, you know, even March, like you said, I think there's a lot of opportunities to be had. or you can kind of wait to see how things play out, because things are changing literally month by month. So we just don't know what direction it's happening. Right now, I think the prices are propped up because of the low inventory, the low unemployment rate, and a lot of sellers are not going to sell their house that have a 3, 4, 5% interest rate to get into a 7 or 7.5, 8 interest rate. I just do not see that happening at all right now. I hope that answers your question. I apologize, guys, if you can't hear me too well. I'm trying not to be too loud. There's people right outside of this office door having meetings and things like that. Okay, Suzanne Lee, if you are a potential buyer, would you consider buying a house now or wait it out? It's funny you say that. I just gave a verbal offer actually last week on Monday. House has been sitting on the market for just above 30 days, and I actually ended up giving a verbal offer to them, and I thought they were actually gonna take it. I thought they were gonna consider it, but they didn't. The agent never, the agent never contacted me back. I just got an alerted email saying that they dropped the price. So my offer was lower than the price that they dropped, but we were still, how far apart? We were $20,000 apart, which obviously is a big discrepancy, but I told them, hey, listen, I'll buy the house as is. I'm an agent. You don't have to pay me any commission if you don't want to. Put that towards the house or whatever the case is. So I put out a verbal out there. It didn't get caught, but you never know with real estate. The house is still on the market now. They can call me next week, but if they give it to me for the price that I want it for, I'll buy it. I'll buy anything for the right price. But really, it just depends on your situation. It depends on the situation you're in. Are you currently in a lease? Are you single? Do you have a family? Do you have to be in a certain school district? How comfortable are you currently with your job? Hopefully there's no layoffs happening in your job or anything like that. And that's why I say, for buying a house for every single person is completely different, because every single person is motivated by something different. So it's very much going to vary. But like I keep saying, beating a dead horse here, right now up until January, February, March, right before springtime, I think there's good opportunities to be had out there, but as long as you feel comfortable and things like that. The sad thing is, I've seen so many people in 2020, 21, and 22 wait it out, and a lot of them regret waiting it out, but who knows what can happen. Like I said, I still in my heart of hearts believe we're going to see a 15 to 20% decline in prices from our all-time highs. However, this is the problem. Are we gonna see that in 6 months, 18 months, 5 years? Nobody knows. That's the thing. We are gonna have a slowdown eventually. Eventually, the inventory is going to build. Eventually, there's gonna be a lot more people selling their houses. But when is that gonna happen? 6 months, 18 months, 3 years, 5 years? We don't know, so it depends on your situation. If you want to wait it out, obviously, it's very tough. If I had some more information, I'd be able to guide you a little bit better, but that's all I can do for now. What else do we got here? We got 5 people on here, guys. Leave any questions you want to ask. I'm here. I'm available for you, whatever you need. Here we go. Yazid, what is your insight on new houses versus pre-owned? It's very much a preference. Obviously, new construction has so many benefits with it being a brand new house. There's, obviously anything can go wrong, but essentially you almost have nothing to worry about. You have a ton of warranties in place, and everything's brand new, As far as pre-owned goes, there's a lot of different things to take into consideration. The thing that I like most about pre-owned houses in general is going to be, they tend to be in more established areas. A lot of the new construction they're building now is on the outskirts of town. However, you have other places where they're knocking down, houses in older areas and then building new construction, but we're not talking about those. But it just depends on your preference. There's certain people that I've worked with that are like, Sasha, I only want new construction. I want to be the first person to live in it. I want it to be only, built 2020 plus, 2015 plus. So it just depends on your preference. I personally like resale houses. I'd like to renovate, my house and things like that. So I personally like the resale houses. They tend to have bigger yards. The neighborhoods tend to have a little bit more character and things like that. But that's my personal preference. But I've also helped clients in new construction neighborhoods, and then me being in the neighborhood, looking at houses, looking at all the amenities some of these new construction neighborhoods have, I'm like, damn, I would live here. I would live here. So I've seen a ton of communities that I would live in, but it's just kind of a thing of preference, to be honest with you. I don't think you can go wrong with either or, you know. But like I said, new construction, a lot less quote unquote of a headache, just because you know everything is new. Got 6 people on here, guys. Answer any and all questions, or ask me any questions that you have. I don't have any in the queue. I just got through all of those ones. So whatever you have for me, I'm happy to answer it. Just jot it down there below. We'll get to it. Unique property inspections, thanks. Yes, sir. Any and all questions, guys, come on, I welcome them. Staying on here for you as long as you need me. Similar question. Any benefits to waiting a few more months if you have a good down payment? How much do you think we will see an increase in supply? We're renting in Dilworth, hard to leave this neighborhood, but looking at all over, closer to Concord, Huntersville, Davidson. Love your channel, thanks so much. Right now, as we currently sit, I don't see a benefit as far as the supply goes. The rate, like I keep saying, the rates are high, and so many homeowners do not want to trade in their 3, 4, 5% interest rate for a 7, 7.5, 8% interest rate. But naturally, as seasonality goes, the market report is going to come out next week, so make sure to keep your eyes on that. I'm very curious to see what the trend is as far as inventory, because this year has been so out of whack that we're actually seeing inventory slightly start going up, even though we're supposed to be seeing it drop down to its lowest levels towards the end of the year, because we're in November, we're approaching holiday season right now. So we tend to see the inventory drop to its lowest levels of the year, but the last 2 or 3 months, we've actually had them a little bit higher than normal. So it's gonna be very interesting to see, but I guess if you're asking, you know, the benefit of waiting until maybe spring or summertime of 2024, you're gonna have more inventory than you have today because of seasonality. But interest rates unfortunately just play such a big factor into everything. Like I said, guys, if interest rates were to drop 2% or something like that come spring of 24, summer of 24, I think we're gonna see a lot of people, a lot of buyers that are on the sidelines waiting to re-enter, unless we see some changes with the unemployment rate, and unless we go into a recession, which I do think is going to happen based off of all the stuff all these big economists and things like that are saying. We're going to head into a recession. It's more likely than not, and I think that's very true. I think that's going to happen. So you know, we'll see how it plays out when it comes to that. Network guy Dave, I think we're going to head into a recession as well. How are you, Dave? Man, I'm doing very well. I'm doing good. Tonight it's going to be freezing, I think 32 degrees, and I have a couple coming from Florida tomorrow. I'm going to be meeting with them. They're going to be here over the weekend, and I'm very curious to see how they adjust. It's beautiful, it's sunny here. You know, it's going to be, I think, 64 tomorrow and then 70 on Sunday, but at nighttime it's going to be like in the 30s. So it's going to be very interesting. They're planning on moving here 2025. So they've came out to Charlotte a couple times, but I'm very curious, coming from Florida, how they're gonna adjust, man. But I'm doing very good. I appreciate you asking. But yeah, man, I'm glad you agree. I think a recession is going to happen, and you know, we're gonna see some changes. It's just crazy. We've seen so many things happen, so many changes happening all over the place, and it really hasn't affected to the extent that I thought it would affect, you know, the stock market, the real estate market, and people and things like that. So it's very interesting. But yeah, man. Edward guy Dave, where are you? Are you in Charlotte? I can't remember. I know you were on my live, I think, last time we had talked about it. Any other questions, guys? Coming up on 30 minutes, I'd hate to jump off right now because I still got a little bit more time. Plus, I don't even know what time, 5:30. I'll probably get stuck in traffic on the way home. But maybe I'll find something else. Let's see. What do you prefer, Waxhaw or Marvin? Good question. They're essentially the same thing. For me personally, Waxhaw, Marvin, Weddington, Wesley Chapel, I group all of those together. They have very similar real estate, very similar homes, very similar pricing. They all have good schools. They're all places where a lot of families are and things like that. But essentially, there really is none. If you really want to go to Marvin School, Marvin High School, if you want to be zoned in that district, then you would look at places in Marvin. But for the sake of, not wanting to bore you with a bunch of stuff, Waxhaw and Marvin are essentially the same thing. Marvin is like in kind of Waxhaw. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but yeah, they're essentially the same thing. Like I said, they offer very similar stuff. Similar houses, similar prices. They all have good schools, very family friendly oriented. Any questions you guys have on here, guys, let me know. All right, guys, we got 7 people on here. Feel free to ask me any questions on here while I'm live right now. Otherwise, we're gonna unfortunately have to cut it a little bit short. I'd like to go for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, but if you guys don't have any questions, that is totally okay. Network guy Dave, do you prefer Huntersville or Indian Trail? Which city is more fun / more things to do? Also, do they plan on building that Crystal Lagoon in Huntersville? Good question, man. So do I prefer Huntersville or Indian Trail? I like them both. I've done a lot more work in the Indian Trail area, but for some reason, I'm leaning a little bit towards Huntersville. I think they're both good. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Huntersville. I like what they have going on over there. I like the location of Huntersville. I like the fact that it's right off of 77. And, depending on where you are in Huntersville, it's a 20-minute drive to Center City, Uptown Charlotte, if you take the bypass. A lot of the construction is newer, so it's the same thing in Indian Trail. They're very much a tie, but I do tend to like Huntersville a little bit more, than Indian Trail. But then again, Indian Trail is so close to Matthews, and it's roughly about the same drive to Uptown Charlotte. You're probably looking at about 30 minutes because you don't have a bypass to take you directly there. And the Crystal Lagoon, no, that plan is squashed. It was going to take up, I think, 540 acres. I'm sure you saw the video that I did on it, but no, they turned that plan down. The residents of Huntersville essentially said, hey, it's going to be way too much traffic. We don't want it. The fees were going to be a little bit too high. They didn't think people could accommodate for the fees. So that plan is scrapped for now, but we'll see what happens in the future. It might come back. Leanne Montgomery, lots of new construction in Dallas. What is the area like? Leanne, I have no idea, to be honest with you. Dallas is a little bit further out. I haven't been out to Dallas. I don't even know how far it is from Charlotte. I want to say it's probably like an hour and a half. So I don't work in that area specifically. If you'd like, I can get you connected with somebody in Dallas. I know Denver, North Carolina is nice, but Denver's right on the water, so a little bit pricier and stuff like that for the new construction. But I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Dallas, North Carolina. Network guy Dave, man, I know you're thinking about spring, summer of 2025. Just make sure to reach out to me, or if you come to visit, if you want to grab some coffee or something. I'd love to meet up with you and we can talk a little bit more and show you essentially both of the areas so you can compare them. It very much matters kind of what you're into, what's most important to you, things you like to do and things like that. But I don't think you can go wrong with either Huntersville and or Indian Trail. I think they're both great areas. I think they're both areas they're going to see a ton of upside, a ton of appreciation in these next 5 to 10 years, But I will say I see more young professionals moving to Huntersville than I do Indian Trail. All right, guys, we have no more questions. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you catch the market report that comes out next week. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.